Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's episode is part 3. It's the final part of the tutorials covering the first movement of Chopin Concerto No. 1 in E minor, Opus 11. We are going to be looking at the recapitulation. The recapitulation actually starts in the orchestra part in bar 486 when they come in with that. But the piano part comes in at 5:10. And just a quick note about the overhead camera. This Pro Practice video is the first Pro Practice video I have filmed in this new space. And in parts 1 and 2, on some of the louder chords, there was a little bit of vibration going on. So that was a little bit shakier than usual. So thank you for your understanding with that. I have switched out the mounts. It's now a free floating mount rather than being hooked into the ceiling, so just wanted to give you a little disclaimer on that. Jumping into 5:10. Now, a lot of these are going to be similar concepts because it's pretty much an exact repeat for these first few pages until we get into bar 558. So I'm not going to be going over those quite as in-depth as I did in part 1, these first couple of pages. But we will be going over a few ideas about how to vary that. Anytime you have a repeat in music, or not necessarily repeat, but just repetition of material, you want to do something to contrast it. So here we have the orchestra coming in. How do we want to vary that? In Daniel Trifonov's recording, he takes much more brisk tempo and then allows it to slow down later. So he's really moving that. I almost took the opposite approach. I like it to be even more sentimental. So like a painful memory. And now Chopin varies this. He puts that little rest. So that's a 16th note into that. And then he only puts a 19 rather than a 21 tuplet in bar 516. So here he goes. So in the first time we see this, we see that little turnaround. This time, we see it just go straight down and then back up to the B, rather than, let's see, going back up to the B and then back up to the B again. So you can go slightly slower, and I think this is really special to have that slight delay in 5:15 with. So I would take that opportunity to maybe push to there this time. And then, so 1, 2. And I like to just move my hand forward slightly because the thumb, if you pull it back, it's going to come off the keyboard completely. So I kind of bring the hand up and forward. So bringing it up like that helps me to feel like a little bit of a release of extra arm weight. So it's a little lighter, not quite as much arm weight. And then pulling that forward just accommodates the thumb since it's a shorter finger. So now a little more energy. Again, aware of and changing on each of those. Those are great places to change your pedal. Change, 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 change. This time, I thought something that was kind of nice, 519 and 520, is maybe feather out the pedal a little bit on beat 3 on that subtuplet, and then also, so it's just a little bit lighter, a little drier almost. A little bit like that is quite nice, and then something we didn't talk about in part 1 is this interesting, why does Chopin double stem this here? Because it doesn't really resolve anywhere. I mean, I guess you could say it goes there, but I think that A, and then that slur that he writes, just brings a little bit of an awareness to that left-hand line, which I think is a nice little counter line to your right-hand melody, especially since it just resolved. And then it dissipates. Now, if that time you want to do this instead, and then to there, and go to there, that's totally fine. Or if you want to be even softer, to there. I believe that's what I did both times. If you want to contrast it, that's a good idea. So feeling the intensifying of the texture, and then a little resolution. We talked about trills the first time around. Depends on how many you want to do. And maybe that time take a little more time and a little more gentle, and you can go maybe to the bottom like that, rather than first time maybe you do a diminuendo, second time maybe a little crescendo, then come down. One thing that I would challenge you to do, I actually have a recording of this, of my performance from September 5th. And one thing that I listened through to it last night, and I was like, I was a little bit stagnant in these. Not within the figures. Within the figures I'm shaping nicely, but between figures. So maybe, and then maybe a little less. And then that way you can take a little time. And then go. Again, you have to coordinate all this with orchestra or your second pianist, but I think that is nice. Maybe this time a little more. Now here, this is different this time. You notice, I think I alluded to this in the first part, but there's no rests anymore until the very last one in 556. So this is straight. Same thing with this. Same thing with this. So make sure that you don't go. Take your time, then go make. I still like to ease into it. And then the last time, Susan and I had discussed, Susan, my teacher, lifelong teacher, discussed this, and I said, you know, it's so different, and technically the first time, the rhythm is just straight, even though there's that rest, and she's like, yeah, I think that might be Chopin pointing to the fact that you could take a little extra time. And this time, it's straighter, but then that makes this one all the more special. And since you're by yourself there, orchestra's not playing, maybe make even more time there, make it even more special. And just notice that this doesn't go to there. Instead, it ends here, and I just feather out the pedal very gradually to beat 2, off, and then pedal, change, pedal, change. And let me give you the fingering that I used in this section. You do a 1-3 trill, and then 2-1-2.